Hello, I would like to welcome you to the offer holder webinar that we're running for you today. I'm aware that there may be a few more people to join us, so we'll just give them just a couple of moments. But I can see that we've got, I think, 17 people, which is a good number of you, which is great. I'm afraid I can't see your faces and you can't see each other, so this is all very strange. You're all used to Zoom by now, I'm sure, and the various formats that we use for this. The webinar format's the best option for this kind of a meeting, but at some point we'll find a way of everyone now being able to see each other. But I am Caroline Levitt and I head up the Graduate Diploma programme at the Courtauld, and I'm here with my colleague Taka, who works in admissions, and he'll be able to answer any questions that you have in a question and answer session a little bit later during this session. So I'm going to begin by introducing the Courtauld to you and by talking to you a little bit about the programme, and then we'll move to a Q&A session a little bit further towards the end. If you have questions as we go through, you may find that I answer them as we're talking, so maybe just wait for a little while. But if as I'm moving through you think, oh, actually I have got a question and I don't think it's going to be answered, feel free to drop that into the chat and we will try and pick those up towards the end, and you can carry on putting those into the chat whilst we're holding the Q&A as well. I think we will begin sort of talking through things. I can see another person has arrived. That's 18 people I can see now. I'm afraid I'm not quick enough to see what the difference is. A sort of spot the difference game that you can play on the attendee list, but I'm not quick enough to do that, so I can't see who's just arrived. But anyway, welcome. So as I say, I'm Dr. Caroline Levitt and I head the Graduate Diploma at the moment at the Courtauld, and so I've been through all of your application forms. So it would have been me that would have looked at those. I will have read your writing samples and understood who you are from your personal statements and everything. So it's a real pleasure to be able to welcome you here today and to say congratulations on gaining a place on this year's Graduate Diploma. It has been very competitive this year, so you've done really well to be here. So thank you very much for being interested in the course, and I hope that today will really help to problem solve any sort of questions that you've got remaining or that you might still be thinking about as you consider accepting that place or not. I can tell you that if you do come, you will be part of a really rich cohort. It was really exciting actually going through all of the applications and seeing how everybody might fit together. There's a real range of people from a variety of backgrounds, a variety of ages, and I think it will be a really lovely cohort to be working as part of. I often find that graduate diploma cohorts become very sort of close, I think, and collaborative as the year goes on. So there's normally about 30 people in a graduate diploma cohort, and that's what we've accepted at the moment. So yeah, it will be great to meet all of you eventually in due course, and for you to meet each other. And I should say that we will arrange another event later in the term where hopefully it'll be possible for you to meet each other. Perhaps for that one we'll be able to allow you to have your videos on and see each other as well, or perhaps do that in a slightly different format. Today's session is being recorded, so that will go up onto the offer holder webpage, so you'll be able to revisit this if you want to. And I will just say that some of the information I'm going to give you will probably seem like a little bit of a repeat of anything that you have seen already as part of the open day that we ran about the diploma. Some of it will include some updates, so I can give you a little bit more information now than I would have been able to give you back in, when did we record that? November, I think. So I can give you more information about the course now than I could then, but I will repeat some of that information. I don't know if all of you have had chance to look at the open day recording that's up there or not. I'll begin by telling you a little bit, sorry, I can't get my slides to move on, there we go. I'll begin by just talking a little bit about the Courtauld itself. As I think you mostly know, we're currently out of our usual premises. We're not in Somerset House, we're up at Vernon Square, but we sort of moved everything up there with us to all intents and purposes. And we've got the most incredible library and all sorts of other resources that you will have access to there, which I will talk about as we go on. But I was thinking about why you might choose to study at the Courtauld. And I think that we are really proud, particularly, of the way that we range across a huge set of different media, different time periods, different geographical regions in the types of art and other sort of visual cultural materials that we study at the Courtauld. We're an active research community. So when you come to us, you're joining that active research community effectively. You'll be taught by academics who are leading researchers in their field, people who are currently contributing to the changing face of art history. I think art history is a discipline which hopefully is constantly changing, constantly shifting, constantly responding to culture as it develops and helping to contribute to that. So you will be part of an active group of researchers who are helping to shape and contribute to a constantly changing field or discipline. London is a great place to be. Hopefully by the time you come in September, Britain's roadmap will be continuing merrily on its course. Galleries have just opened up again this week. I'm looking forward to getting back into some. I haven't managed to since yesterday, but galleries have now reopened. So hopefully by the time that you come to London, you will have an opportunity to go and visit all sorts of artworks in person. London's a great place to be for doing that. And we often teach in gallery spaces. That's a really important thing for us. We believe that being in front of an object is a really key experience to becoming an art historian, and looking closely at paintings, sculptures, buildings is a really exciting way of teaching and learning and discussing ideas. You'll have access to our own gallery once that reopens later this year in the autumn, and we're really excited about that. And at that point, we will become a sort of split site for a little while the academic teaching continues up at Vernon Square in King's Cross. The gallery will be reopened down at Somerset House, and you will be very welcome in both places. They're not all that far apart. It was quite interesting when we were moving the library up to Vernon Square a few years back. Somebody measured the amount of sort of mileage, I suppose, on the shelves of the library. We worked out that if you put all of our books along the route between Somerset House and Vernon Square, they would roughly fill that space. I can't remember exactly how many miles it was now, whether Taka can remember, I don't know. But the number of miles that it was the number of books that we had on the shelves in the library. So there you go. You can read your way between Vernon Square and Somerset House. There's all sorts of different activities going on at the Courtauld that will enable you to sort of support and broaden the formal teaching that you are being given. And I'll tell you about a few of those a little bit more in a moment. We have a careers service. And I think the Courtauld Mafia, as it has sometimes been called, or our Courtauld alumni network, you'll find people who have been at the Courtauld as students in all sorts of places, especially across the art world, in other places too. But I think many of you who are coming to the graduate diploma are coming from a different place. So you're probably looking to come into the art world. And I think you'll be in good company. We've got graduates who are in all sorts of places, the Tate, V&A, Sotheby's, the BBC, even Google are some of the names that I've put up there on that slide. But you'll be joining a large group of Courtauld graduates by the end of the diploma year. And our alumni network is an incredible thing to be part of, I think. Let me tell you a little bit more about the diploma itself, and then we'll think about some of those things that are available to support you as you study. I think a lot of you will have seen this before, so as I say, forgive me for sort of repeating this, but I think it's good to just make sure that everybody knows exactly what they're getting themselves into. These are the sort of different component parts of the graduate diploma programme. There is a taught element to your year, and there is also an independent research element, and we think that those really go hand in hand, and the taught element, I think, culminates in many ways in the ability to produce a really often very interesting, sometimes even quite groundbreaking piece of original research. So I'll come to that in a moment, but in terms of the taught component, you take two different types of course. You take a foundations course, and it's sort of the closest thing that we have to what you might call a survey, but we deliberately don't call it a survey because we don't want to pretend that you can get any form of sort of comprehensive overview of every aspect of the history of art in a year. That would be very misleading, I think. Instead, it's an opportunity to really dig into a few key areas which are very much research-led. So it's a course that is informed and directed by the research interests of the the particular faculty who are teaching on that in any given year. And I think that will look really exciting in the next year. We've in particular got a couple of new appointments coming up, which are going to be announced shortly, but I think they will really broaden the things that we're teaching. So that's very exciting. So that you will be taught in Foundations by a range of different faculty members working on all sorts of different subjects. And I'll show you this current year's blocks in a moment, so you get an idea of what you might encounter in that course. That's taught across both the autumn and the spring term. You have 3 lectures a week, plus 1 discussion class, which allows you to go a little bit more in depth into the material from the lectures, to think about the things that have been really clear, the things that maybe you have been confused by. It's an opportunity to discuss together as a cohort some of the issues that have been brought up in those lectures. And that is assessed by 2 essays, one due in December and one due in March. So it's a coursework assessment for that course. The other course type that you take is something that we call a constellations course. Now, I think people often ask me why they're called constellations courses. I think if you were to dig back to when we first created these, it's to do with having a lecture course and a seminar course which sort of orbit around each other. So there are 2 different parts to the constellations course. One is 2 lectures a week given by a member of the faculty, and the other part of that course is a seminar per week on a connected theme. So let me give you an example. The modern interior is one particular constellations course which I know well. That has a lecture component which thinks about all sorts of different types of modern interiors, different sort of design practices through the 20th century. And then the related seminar course is on the modern object. So it might look particularly at chairs one week, for example, or something else on a different week. So they are linked, and then both those components, which are they're sort of treated as one course really, they are assessed by an exam. The autumn term course is assessed in January and the spring term course is assessed in May. So we're coming up to our assessment period for this year's spring constellations courses. Now in the past, we would have invited you all to be in an exam hall with a pen and a physical script. Over the last couple of years, because of the pandemic, we have had to move to an online exam, and that has taken place over the course of sort of 48 hours to take in different time zones and things. It's a slightly different thing. We are meeting at present in the next week or so to be thinking about how we go forward with that. So by the time you are together again in the summer term, for example, we'll be able to give you a little bit more information, I think, on what exams look like going forwards. But that will be an exam of some sort. It will either be a sort of 2-hour in-person exam, 3-hour in-person exam, or it will be a digital exam, but that is to be confirmed. The other thing that you do, which is compulsory in your course, is a 5,000-word assessed essay. Now you might think, why isn't it a dissertation? It's purely to do with the length of it. To all intents and purposes, it's the equivalent of a dissertation that you might have undertaken as an undergraduate, for example. It's a 5,000-word piece, so it's not overly long, which means that it needs to be focused. And I think that's its real strength, that it gives you the opportunity to focus in on something that you're interested in. It's not necessarily linked to any other course that you might have taken. It is on an area that you're interested in, that you have selected, and that you will be given a supervisor to work with. And the way that we assign supervisors is that you provide us with an abstract in, I think, around about February. And you tell us what it is that you'd like to work on, and we will find a supervisor who seems to fit that subject. You get to choose a selection of supervisors who you think might be appropriate, and we then look at that list and we make sure that everybody's got the right number of students to work with and that you've got an appropriate supervisor for the subject that you've chosen. So essentially it's an independent piece of work, but you will have 2 meetings with your supervisor to support you in that. We don't just say go off to the library, do it yourself. You have 1 meeting to discuss the research area and how you're going to go about it, for example, and another meeting usually to discuss a draft. So your supervisor will read what you've written and give you plenty of feedback on that. So you're well supported, and it's usually a really enjoyable part of the course. I hope it sounds as such anyway. There are other things that you can do. Let me show you. Here's my pie chart of how all that fits together. So the foundations lectures constitute 20% of the final degree classification for the diploma. So if you were to work that out, each of the essays that you write for that is worth 10%, isn't it? Okay. And then each constellations course counts for 25%. So this is going to give you a weighted average, effectively. That's what we do with the marks from those different courses. We give you a weighted average based on those. And the assessed essay is worth 30%. The graduate diploma is a pass-fail course, so we have a pass mark of 50, and if you get 51% or if you get 87%, you still pass. We don't have a sort of distinction or merit system for that, but we do say if you wanted to go on to do the Courtauld MA, for example, it might be slightly different criteria in different places, but it's often very similar. The Courtauld MA, we ask for an overall weighted average of 60%. And 65% in the assessed essay. And that is to do with the way that our particular MA is quite independent research heavy. So the skills that you can demonstrate via the assessed essay are particularly important, which is why that sort of weighting is there. Okay. Any questions about that, you can ask me at the end if you want to. In addition to all of those sort of compulsory elements, well, I'll come to those in a second. In addition to those compulsory elements, there are other courses that you can audit. So, for example, we have 3 constellations courses running in a term. You could go and listen to lectures from the other courses if you wanted to. You would also be very welcome, and actually I strongly encourage you to attend our Frameworks lectures. Frameworks is a methodology course which is sat by our undergraduates, our second year undergraduates. But I find that graduate diploma students often find that a really useful addition to their studies at the Courtauld. They consist of sort of a pair of lectures 1 week and then a week off, when the undergraduates would be doing some seminars related to that. You wouldn't be assessed on frameworks, you don't have to attend all of it, but I often find that it can really enrich your experience. So you're free to sort of choose from any lectures that are happening and attend those in addition if you want to do so. So here we go. I said I would give you an example of the foundations course. This is what we had running this year. This will change for 2021-22. And that is to do with different people being on sabbatical, different people being around for different things, new appointments, as I say. So this won't look quite the same this coming year, but I will confirm to you in due course what it will look like. But this is the sort of range that foundations tends to tackle. So you can see there right through from classical and Byzantine art in the autumn, you have 2 weeks per block, as we call them. So that's 6 lectures per block. So 6 lectures on classical and Byzantine art and 2 related discussion classes, 6 lectures on the Middle Ages, 6 on the Renaissance in Northern Europe, 6 on the Renaissance in Italy and beyond, and so on. So that's the range that this year's students have had. And we're still finalising our course planning for next year and looking at who is involved in that and therefore what will be taught. Okay, research-led teaching is a really important thing to us. We believe that we undertake research through teaching, and that teaching is a way of contributing to research, and it's a way of helping you to become researchers as well. So it guarantees you access to sort of cutting-edge thinking in the field, really. We don't have a textbook for the same reason. You will have access to a lot of readings that are made available to you either through scans on our virtual learning environment or through the huge range of online resources that we now have, especially as a result of the last year or so. The library has heavily invested in online resources, as well as that huge range of books that I was telling you about in the library. So we don't have a textbook because we want you to be taking in ideas from a variety of different sources. We don't believe that you should have just one viewpoint on anything. We like you to see a variety of different perspectives and to hang those in the balance. And Foundations really contributes to that, I think. Constellations courses, this looks a lot more like what should be on offer to you this year. Again, it's being absolutely finalised at the moment, and course descriptions will be made available to you in due course. But this is likely to be the courses that are running, likely to be the courses that are running in the year that you will be taking the diploma. So as I say, there are 3 courses running per term. You're allocated to one of them. So you're registered, you're enrolled on one of the constellation courses per term. So you do 2 in total. You can go and audit other lectures if you want to, not the seminars. We keep seminar teaching to small groups for very specific reasons, entirely pedagogical really. We believe that people discuss better in a small group situation and therefore learn better. And a small group seminar gives you opportunities to go and look at things together in a gallery, or to give a presentation to your group, for example, in a way that you couldn't if we taught everything in large lectures. So you can't go and sit in on other groups' seminars, but you can sit in on any of the lectures that you choose to. In due course, you will be contacted and asked to complete a survey where you can express a preference for different courses. We can't guarantee you your first choice because of that insistence on making sure that you all get access to small group teaching. If all 30 of you want to do the same course, we have to allocate you accordingly so that everybody gets a chance to be in a small group. So if you do the maths, there are 3 courses per term, there are 30 of you, you should be in a group of about 10 people. And in order to ensure that balance, we take your preference into account, and where possible, we give you your first choice. And in my experience, usually people will get their first or second choices, but we can't guarantee that, as I say. It just depends on what is popular in any given year. The one caveat, when you're sent that survey, please don't put 2 20th century options as your first choice, okay? Because we won't be able to give you both of those. We want to make sure that the graduate diploma retains a certain degree of breadth. We specialise at MA level at the Courtauld, but the graduate diploma has a key intention to give you a breadth of experience. Therefore, for example, you wouldn't be able to do Cold War cultures in the autumn and the modern interior in the spring. Likewise, we wouldn't give you image making and the medieval imagination in autumn and art, travel and imagination in the Middle Ages in the spring. Okay, so when you're making those survey choices, try and be a little bit strategic if you can, because we just won't give you 2 periods that are the same across the 2 terms. Okay, so you'll be contacted, and with that survey you'll have a far more detailed course explanation and description of what the lectures in the seminar course will relate to at that point when you're invited to express a preference. That should be in June at some point, so after the deposit deadline, when we can see exactly who is here, you will be sent course allocation surveys. So that is to come. Here is, oh, this is my slide, sorry, this is what I was alluding to earlier about other things that you might decide that you want to go to. So there we go, that's the frameworks methodology course, for example, which I strongly recommend that you attend. There are other things that you can go to if you want to, if you find you've got time. I often find that the graduate diploma is actually quite an intense course in and of itself. So you'll be selective, I think, in what else you go to. But in theory, you could go to frameworks and also lessons in critical interpretation, which is a 3rd year course. There are lots and lots of research forum events in a year that you can also go to. Probably, I think at least 150 events in a year usually via the research forum. You may find that you are very selective in those. There might be certain things that really interest you and certain things that don't, and you're free to pick. You don't have to go to everything. That's one of the nice things, I think, about being part of an active community. People often ask me, sometimes I steer away from giving you a sample timetable because it looks quite different on different years, and depending on how teaching is being run in the autumn, this may well look different. But I'm just giving you this as an example so that you can see the number of contact hours and the sort of commitment level that the graduate diploma is. Okay, foundations lectures, 3 per week, as I've said. So here they're on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. They may not be on those same days, okay, next year. So don't start planning things around this timetable. It's purely indicative, but it just gives you an idea of what you would be committing to. Okay, constellations lectures, as I say, you're registered on one course, so you have to attend. Let's say you're taking Constellations lecture B. Let's say you're taking, I don't know, what would B have been? Let's say you're doing competing ventures. Let's call that B. You would be obliged to be at the lectures on the Tuesdays and the Thursdays and at a seminar on Wednesdays. If you wanted to, you could then also attend the other lectures, Constellations A and C, if you chose to. And then the remaining thing is the Foundations discussion group, which on this particular iteration of the timetable took place on Friday afternoons in 2 groups. Okay, so for that, you're in a very slightly larger small group of about 15. But that's a dedicated graduate diploma group. So you get to know your cohort quite well by being taught together, which I think is a really nice thing. This gives you an idea of the deadlines and the sort of workload that you can expect. The graduate diploma is, I think, it's a full-time course. And I think you should plan around that, be aware of that. People manage that in their own flexible schedules as they wish. So I've known plenty of people who have managed to complete the graduate diploma whilst being around for school pickup on days when they haven't got lectures over that time, for example. It's possible to be flexible with your own life around it, but do be aware that the time commitment is equivalent to a full-time course. Okay, so if you can possibly make sure that you're not trying to hold down a part-time job at the same time, or maybe if you are, that it's very part-time at least. Don't expect to be able to keep up with 25 hours of outside work as well as the graduate diploma. It's best if you can sort of clear that year. It's 9 months really, isn't it, from October through to the end of the exam period, at least in May. If you can clear that time, I think it will give you more of an opportunity to really benefit from everything that's open to you, and to make sure that you've got the headspace to complete the assessments. So it is a full-time course, and you do need to make sure that you've got time for the personal study commitment that involves. This year's formal deadlines I've put down here just as a guideline. So these are the sort of crunch points for this year's group of students. Foundations essay due in December, foundations essay in March, assessed essay, that's the 5,000 word piece, they've just submitted that in May, and exams in the beginning of January and coming up next week for this year's cohort. That's not all you'll do. There'll be formative pieces of work, things that aren't formally assessed, but that you will submit for your Constellations courses. Usually that's a couple of essays and a presentation per Constellations course. So be aware that you'll have other work to do, but those are the sort of formal deadlines for this year at least. What next? I think in many ways that's up to you. A lot of you have got different plans, what you're thinking of doing with the diploma, different places that you're coming from. So really it depends why you've chosen to do the diploma, what you will do with it. People go on to all sorts of things. They go on to doing MAs, either at the Courtauld or elsewhere. Some go on to do PhDs. And then end up teaching or doing research. But you don't have to do that. You can go on to jobs of all sorts in the art world. You might return to a previous job with a different perspective. You might go into a volunteering role. It depends at what point in your career you are. You might just be doing this for personal satisfaction, in which case you might go on to other types of further study. I know a number of cohorts from previous years who still meet up to chat together and talk about art history. Maybe once every couple of months, someone will present something that they've been thinking about, or they'll go and visit exhibitions together. So I think cohorts often stay quite close in that way and really benefit from the support of each other. There are all sorts of resources available at the Courtauld that you will be supported by and that you will tap into. We've talked a little bit about the Courtauld Gallery when that reopens, the book library. We also have image libraries, huge collections of images that have come to the Courtauld over the years, which are gradually being digitised at the moment. I think we're a long way through that project now, so you're more likely to consult some of those things digitally probably, but there still are boxes, files full of images that you can have a look at if you want to. We have a prints and drawings room and a connected object study room where you can go and look at a real drawing in the flesh in your own time. And you may well find that classes are taking advantage of that as well, and that you go and look at things as a seminar group. And then, as I say, the research forum, where all sorts of research events take place during the year. I think one of the nice things about the pandemic, if there's anything nice about a pandemic, one of the things that we've benefited from this year, certainly, has been the research forum going digital. So if you wanted to look up the Courtauld YouTube channel, you'd find all sorts of research events on there, certainly from the last year, that have been recorded and put up. The Open Courtauld Hour, I think, has been a particular highlight, which started back last March, I suppose. So you could look that up if you wanted to. That would be a really interesting thing to look at, to get an idea of some of the things that the research forum does. There are opportunities. You can sort of work for the Courtauld, you could become a student ambassador. There are all sorts of things that you can do at the Courtauld. When the gallery reopens, for example, there'll be opportunities probably to give gallery talks again. That's something that we used to do a lot of. Students were often encouraged to take part in that. Internships, it's a good sort of platform for starting from. A lot of our students go on to do internships in really interesting places in London and beyond. So take advantage of all the opportunities that being a member of the Courtauld community can provide for you. There's all sorts of support in place for you. You'll have a personal tutor. Now up to this year, this has been me. It's the head of the graduate diploma programme in any given year. That actually won't be me next year. I'm taking on the role of head of department from September. So you will actually be looked after by my excellent colleague, Suzanne Babai, who she's brilliant. You will meet her in the summer term when we run another session for you. I'll make sure that she's able to come along to that and introduce herself. So you'll have a personal tutor in her. You will have the same personal tutor. You'll have certain meetings as a cohort. We provide study support sessions, thinking about writing, thinking about reading, how to look, that kind of thing. If you need particular help with writing, there are particular tutors in place to do that with you, depending on what kind of help you need. If it's purely I want to improve my writing, then you might benefit from our Royal Literary Fund Fellows, for example. If it's more of a specific learning need that you need help with, then we have a specialist study skills tutor who can help you with that. Counsellors, a wellbeing manager, all sorts of structures in place there to help support you in your studies. Our careers service is often of particular value to graduate diploma students. I think if you're changing career, our careers service is able to help with that. They offer one-to-one appointments, practice interviews, all sorts of other resources, and a programme which is tailored to graduate diploma students as part of the study support programme. So there are all sorts of ways in which we can support you and provide you with a really sort of holistic experience as part of your time with us. I've left that slide, I'll leave that one up because that's got the link for the offer holder page where the recording of this session will go, and when there's all sorts of other information and things being gradually added, you'll find that there's some suggested reading eventually put up there that you could do before the course. There's nothing that you have to read before the course, but people often ask what they could do in preparation. So up on that page, for example, there will be a list of suggested preliminary reading available for you. And Taka often updates that page and will make sure that everything's up there that you need. Do stay in touch with us. Make sure that if you've got questions, you know how to get those answered. That is the email address that Taka answers, pgadmissions@courtauld.ac.uk. So if you contact that address, you're likely to get a response from him. And if he needs me to give you any information, he'll copy that to me and I will get back to you as well. So there's my sort of whistle-stop tour in a way through the diploma and all of the things that I think are real benefits to coming to the Courtauld. I think what I'll do now is open this up to questions if anybody has any, and to Taka to pick up anything that he thinks I might have missed. So feel free to interject, Taka, if they think there's anything that that I haven't said.
I think you covered everything. So should be fine. Let's just wait for questions.
Okay, I can see a couple of things coming in now. All right, are the classes going to be taught in person? Yeah, sorry, perhaps I should have said something specific about that. I think I expected this probably would be a question, but I should have covered it really. We are closely tracking the roadmap. I would expect, given the current opening of galleries, for example, that some things will be able to happen in person. So for example, at the moment, 6 people can go to a gallery together. I would hope that by the autumn, a full seminar group will be able to go to a gallery together. I would hope that we will be able to do seminar teaching at least in person. Discussions are still being had about exactly what teaching looks like, whether it will all be in person, whether there will be some hybrid element, and we will keep you informed as absolute decisions are made on that. But you can certainly expect that at least some of it will be in person. So do plan around that. We don't have the intention, unless something goes wrong again, of this being a distance learning course. The idea is very much that it will be an in-person course. Okay, so plan around that, plan to be in London, plan to have access to all of those resources, and especially to galleries. And we will update you with exactly what teaching looks like. But we're very much hoping that at least some of it, if not all of it, will be in person. Okay. How and when will we be given our confirmation of acceptance for studies? Taka, maybe I'll get you to answer that one as well.
Yeah, that's for me. We can only issue CAS 3 months before the course start date. So we're going to actually send an email to all international students in May. Sorry, not in May, in June. So we are sort of aiming to issue a CAS around end of June. That's the sort of immigration rules that we have to adhere to. So we can't actually do it any time earlier. But we are actually going to send an email to actually let you know that we think you're international students, and we sort of wait for your reply, that sort of thing. So just wait until June. Probably sometime in mid-June, we're going to actually send an email, and then you'll be fine from that. Okay.
Thank you. Watching lectures later in the week online. Certainly this year, that has been something that has happened a lot, I think. In terms of recording lectures, as a general rule, it's not something that we used to do. We've been recording them this year because we've had to. It's been the only way of allowing people access to lectures. If that happens next year, if we need to continue recording large-scale lectures, which is a possibility, then they will remain available for you to watch during the week after those have been recorded. Usually you would hope to watch them live, but certainly if you wanted to watch them back, if they've been recorded, you can do so. As a matter of course, as I say, we haven't previously had a policy of recording lectures. That is being reviewed going forwards, because obviously there are lots of opportunities that this has opened up. It's not something that we have relied upon. So I won't make any guarantees about those being available if they're taught in person. If they're being taught in person, you should plan to be there in person. If they're not taught in person, they'll be available online. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I hope that answers the question. The age range of the cohort. Let's see, I didn't particularly note down exact dates of birth, but I do know that there were certainly some people who just finished undergraduate courses, so aged about 21. And I know that some people have got to the end of very long and illustrious careers. So I know that there are some people in their 20s and some people, I think, in their 60s or possibly even 70s. So I think there's a real range, and there's plenty in between. So it's a genuine range of ages. Okay. Couple of questions there about deposits.
Right, I think that's me. So I'm just going to answer the first one. We will send you a confirmation email, but it's likely our finance office is still trying to process your deposit. It depends how busy they are. Sometimes it takes about like 5 working days for them to actually confirm it with us, and then we can actually confirm with you guys. So just be patient. I'm just going to follow up this afternoon, seeing if there are new payments that they have actually processed. So just don't worry about it. It won't be lost. But we will actually send you an email when our finance office processed your deposit. And 1 second, what can we find a list of? Oh, so that's a different one. Probably that's back to Caroline.
Okay, yeah. So preliminary suggested readings, that will be on the offer holder page. Taka can remind me whether we've already put that up or not. No, I don't think we have. I have a list, but I tend to update it each year. So Taka will probably be waiting on me for the updated list. So in due course, when I've got that sorted, that will go up. It usually would go up in June.
Yeah, it normally actually goes in summer. So probably, yeah. So probably like, yeah, we can probably do that in June if Caroline can actually update it. But
yeah, it's partly me, and it's also partly connected to constellations courses, for example, because sometimes we'll put something on there related to the specific constellations options that are being run. So keep checking back on the offer page, but that would usually go up, yeah, I think sometime in June, possibly beginning of July. Okay. Funding support options for diploma, unfortunately not. There's no funding available for it. It just sort of slips between all of the different types of funding that there are. So no is the basic answer to that, I'm afraid. What's the percentage of international students in the programme? That's a really good question, actually. I'm not sure that I note it properly.
I don't know, actually. I can
About 50% or something. I don't know. When international is a particular status, isn't it? So if I was to take in European and international together, probably about 50%. I don't know.
possibly if you actually include the EU students,
so.
because from this year, obviously EU students are international now. But yes, around that sort of percentage, I would say.
I think so. Yeah. So I think we have a really rich really rich group of people, actually. Do you think that the graduate diploma provides you with a good foundation to start working in the art world? I think this is always a really interesting question, actually. It really depends on what you want to do in the art world. It does provide you with a good foundation, and there are certain jobs for which it will absolutely qualify you, and it depends a little bit on your previous experience as well, and sort of what you're bringing to that job. So, for example, I know people who have gone on to be registrars in galleries, or who have gone on to work in education departments, or for, I think somebody went to work for the Tate magazine once, that kind of thing. So there are all sorts of opportunities that do come up. For something more like curating, for example, you would quite likely need an MA as well, and possibly a bit further down the line, even a PhD, depending on sort of what track you took into that. So it depends very much on what you've done before, what opportunities are available. I won't guarantee you a job at the end of the graduate diploma, but it does give you a good solid foundation for a lot of different opportunities. Alternatively, it gives you a good foundation for an MA if you find that that is what is required for your chosen job, as it were. So I'm sorry, that sounds like I'm sitting on the fence. I don't know if there's a better answer to that or not, really. But it really is quite dependent, I think, on what you've done before and what you're aiming at. But it can be a good foundation in its own right. Last year's reading list is online. Okay, that's done. Thank you. That's great. Thank you. When will we be notified what sort of learning we'll be experiencing? Okay, yeah. I mean, I think this is it's a really difficult question, but it does have certain sort of parameters to it. So I think I would say there are probably 3 likely scenarios, and this is sort of what we had to say last year as well, but at least I've got a year's experience of one of them now. The best case scenario is that the roadmap continues well, and we will be able to do in-person teaching for everything. And that's really up to our COVID Gold team, which sounds very exciting, doesn't it? COVID Gold sounds like an amazing sort of groundbreaking, well, I don't know what it sounds like. Anyway, that team are making decisions about what risks we can take, basically. And those decisions will be being made certainly by the start of the term. I'm not sure we can promise them too much in advance of that, because it depends very much on what's happening at the time. We don't want to go and make promises that we then can't keep. If all goes really well, we'll do everything in person. If everything goes really badly, then at least we've got a good year's experience now of doing everything online. And that's what's had to happen this year. We'd planned for hybrid teaching at one point, and that wasn't able to take place. So what's happened is that we've run seminars on Zoom. We've done some pre-recorded lectures with a live element. We've done other lectures that have been live streamed, where you can contribute and participate in those either through a chat or through breakout rooms. There have been social events that have been organised on Zoom. There's been a huge amount taking place digitally, and people have managed to remain connected. It's not the same as studying in person. I won't pretend that it is. The third scenario is the sort of hybrid option. And I think that's entirely feasible for the autumn term, as things are at the moment. It's entirely likely. It might be that large lectures continue online, but that small group teaching is able to take place in person, for example, because that would be easier for social distancing in spaces. In which case there would be gallery visits and that kind of thing able to take place. Okay, so I think something's just been put up. There is something on this in the frequently asked questions online, but those are the sort of 3 scenarios that have been mapped out as possibilities. Okay. What can we expect from the summer term once the assessed essay has been submitted? That's a really good question, actually. So the autumn term and the spring term are when the teaching takes place. We have a 10-week term. So you start with week 0, which is induction week, and there'll be a few sort of welcome sessions in that week for you, a chance to enroll, get a handle on how the quartile works. And then from week 1 through to week 10, you sort of hit the ground running, and there are talk courses for the whole of the autumn term and for the whole of the spring term. So what in the world are you supposed to do in the summer term? Effectively, that is your time for writing the assessed essay and for preparing for the exams. Okay, once the assessed essay has been submitted, once you've then had time to revise for the exams and you've sat those, so sort of end of May, you're essentially free. We are marking your work at that point, and we're heading towards the exam boards in June. So at the end of June, all those marks get reviewed so that you can graduate in early July. But essentially for the month of June, you're effectively free. And that's a good opportunity, I think, to go and do an internship, for example, in London, if you want to, or to start moving on to thinking about something else. It's good if you can still be around. Historically, it depends on whether we go back to written exams or not. Historically, people have sometimes had to be around if we can't read your handwriting or something to come and dictate a paper. It's incredibly rare. I think I've only known it happen a couple of times. But it's good to sort of be around. You need to be contactable during that time. You're still a student with us officially, but you don't have anything set to do. Accommodation. Do you want to answer that, Taka?
Yes, I would like to. Just a second, and where is there? So accommodation applications are not open yet. It's because we are in the final sort of stage of finalising contracts and regulations. Just because the UK government updated this sort of the rules last week, so we obviously have to actually change a few things. So when accommodation applications are open, we will actually let all offer holders know that they're open. If you actually want to know what types of accommodations we offer, I'm just gonna put this link. So you can actually have a look at what sort of rooms and what sort of accommodations we offer. So basically, we've got 64 rooms in Dachi House, which is literally next to Somerset House, where the court or the gallery is. And then we also offer a few rooms from the University of London accommodations, which are actually called the intercollegiate halls. You can have a look at the information there, and we will actually let you know when applications are open. Yep, what's next?
Thank you. There's a question there about languages. We don't offer language courses as part of the diploma, but we do have connections. Our undergraduates, for example, take language courses currently with LSE, our BA1 students, or do a language course. So we have connections with other institutions that can provide that for you. And I think that's a reduced rate for current students. So if you wanted to, you could look into that and sort that out independently. Yes, absolutely, you could. It's not part of the course, but I think you'd find that there probably was time to do something like that alongside the diploma. So when I say it's full time, don't plan to do too much else. Probably a language course would be a manageable extra. That's quite a good idea, I think. Great. One more question there about the CAS.
Oh, right, CAS. So if you got a settled status in the UK, that means you've got a visa and you're protected by the withdrawal agreement when the UK left the EU. So no, you don't have to actually apply for a student visa if you've got the right visa to stay in this country. Yeah, that's it for me. So is there graduation ceremony?
Graduation? Yes, there is. In pre-pandemic times, there was a celebration that was in person, and we usually have a hall or a church, depending on the year, where that can take place. And you would be able to bring family members, you would get a gown and a mortarboard and all the rest of it, and there would be drinks afterwards. So that's sort of the best case scenario. Last year and this year, we have had a digital online graduation ceremony, which actually was a lot more successful than I expected it to be. It felt very celebratory. We did it via, was it Zoom or YouTube? I can't remember exactly how that worked now. I leave the registry to sort these sorts of things out, but it worked very well, whereby each cohort was sort of celebrated, and we had a recorded speech from Princess Anne, for example, wasn't it? I think.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So there were all sorts of sort of celebratory elements to that, and I know a lot of cohorts. I know certainly the graduate diploma cohort. We met afterwards for a sort of virtual drink via Zoom, and all poured our own glass of champagne. So we've sort of had to do things in digital ways, which are less than satisfactory in some respects. But yes, one way or another, there will be a graduation ceremony, whatever that looks like. The exact start date, I haven't quite got the term dates in my head.
Oh, I put the link.
Term dates there, there's a link. Well done.
Exact start date is actually 4th of October, but we do have a enrollment week just before that. So the students are sort of expected to actually start the sort of enrollment sessions a week before 4th of October, which is the last week of September. And I think you do some sort of introductory.
Yeah, that's right. So normally during that week, there'd be an administrative side to your enrolment. So you would need to make sure that you've given Tucker a copy of your passport and whatever else he needs to actually physically enroll you onto the course. There's an administrative side to that, but there's also an academic side to that enrolment, and more of a sort of social side to it, whereby as a cohort, you are invited to take part in some sort of preliminary sessions. And it will be up to Suzanne Babai exactly how she runs those. But in the past, what I have done is to have a gallery visit, for example, where we spent an hour looking at a painting in a gallery and thinking about how to look. A session where we think about how to read, and a session where we think about how to write. Not do you know your alphabet, can you read, but how do you read and write in the context of art history? So there are a few sort of preliminary sessions to really getting everybody going on studying again. I think for some people it's a long time since you've studied. For some people you've studied recently, but maybe you've been studying a very different subject. So it's a good opportunity during that week to really get everybody up to speed with some of the skills that you're going to need for the rest of the year. So count that in as part of your term. So the start date will be that last week in September. Thank you very much. And then the official courses, yes, start on the 4th of October.
Yep.
Are
we still doing 40-week contracts with Duchy House, or are you flexible with shorter contracts? That's our plan. As I said, but we are still finalising our contracts at the moment. But 40 weeks for postgraduate students and 35 for undergraduate students, that's a sort of norm for our contracts. But we will actually let you know when everything's finalised.
Brilliant, thank you. Field trips that have taken place in previous years. So let's have a think. They are usually connected to Constellations courses. You're encouraged to go to galleries independently. For foundations, for example, often an essay subject might revolve around an object in the British Museum or in the National Gallery or at the Tate. And for those essays, you might be told, go and look at this object in a gallery, spend some time looking at it and then answer this question around it. So there's a sort of independent gallery visit side to things. But in terms of doing class visits, they're often connected to the Constellations courses. So I've taken groups to the V&A before as part of the Modern Interior course, for example, or the Design Museum in Kensington. I even took a group to Robin Hood Gardens once before it was demolished, and we walked around this fairly desolate looking sort of building site slash brutalist bit of architecture. So it's a real range depending on what Constellations course you're taking that you might visit as a group. So those are a few examples that I can think of. I know colleagues who've done sort of architectural trips to Westminster Abbey or to the National Gallery, hopefully our own gallery once that has reopened as well. So a real range of places in London. We don't do international trips or sort of day trips as part of the diploma because of the timetable constraints. Those belong to the MA, really. Or to actually third year special options on the undergraduate programme sometimes do an international trip, but usually it would be a trip to a gallery. Independent language courses at LSE, gosh, now there's a question. I think that would involve a quick sort of Google search and looking at their website probably. I don't know if there's any information we can put up about languages. I can't quite think.
No, well, I think they're called LSE Language Centre. I think if you actually Google it, you'll be able to register your interest, I think. But I think you need to be a student. You need to be an enrolled student to get the discount rate. So you can't actually you can't get the discount right now, I think. But I'm sure you can actually you can find the sort of phone number you can call on their website.
Yes, you could find out what the opportunities might be and then
Yeah.
enroll once you're with us. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a really helpful comment there, actually. Yes, we'll be having an event for graduates once the gallery reopens, and we can do so. So all those people who've had online graduation ceremonies this year and last year, there will be a sort of big party for that. And thankfully, you'll be coming in the year when the gallery reopens. So hopefully you'll be able to be part of the events surrounding that as well, as long as all these things can happen. If we cannot travel to London for the upcoming campus tours, would it be possible to organise a private tour or something similar later in summer?
Oh, I think Sadi answered that question.
Oh,
Yeah.
here we are. Yeah, campus is being used during the week, so we can't hold them then, and we only host them on student availability. So we can't accommodate individual campus tours, but we can look to see if we can hold more tours later, depending on demand. Yeah, that's true. Thank you. At what point will timelines be issued once the timetables, presumably we're thinking about there? Once the constellations courses are allocated, yeah. So the timetable is being put together at the moment. It has varied a little bit. We're hoping that that will be available to you over the summer at least, so that you've got a little bit of time to work out your plans around that. So yeah, over the course of the summer, that timetable will be made available. I know it's being worked on at the moment. It's a complex document. It depends a little bit on how teaching is able to take place. So once we've been able to confirm what we're planning, we'll be able to give you a timetable for that. That's a good question. There is a student-run Courtauld journal. Yes, it's called the Courtauldian. And I think you can find an issue of it online, actually. I think there's a digital version of that somewhere on our Courtauld website. If you were to search the Courtauldian, Courtauld, IAN. And yes, lots of students contribute to that with exhibition reviews or all sorts of things that people think of doing for that. When do we understand what is contained within a constellation course to enable us to make a choice? When we send around a link to you for the survey so that you can state your preferences, we will accompany that email with a course booklet, at which point that will tell you, it will give you a summary of the course, it will give you a summary of the lecture component and of the seminar component, so that you can understand better what that consists of, so you can make an informed choice. Okay, so that will come around in June when the course allocation survey goes out. Somerset House, no, there are no classes taking place there at the moment. So aside from the gallery side of things is sort of moving back as what we've been talking about as phase one. That's the first thing that will be moving back, and gradually our prints and drawings collection will move back there, and some of the conservation work will move back there. But all the academic side of things will stay in one place up at Vernon Square until we can all move back to the single site. Societies, yep, we do have a sort of freshers fair that is put on by the Students' Union, and actually they managed to even run that digitally this year. I was incredibly impressed at the level of digital acumen that was available to people to run a digital online freshers fair via Zoom. It was incredible. Hopefully there might even be one in person, who knows, depending on what can happen. But yes, during the first week, the Students' Union put on an event where all the societies sort of showcase what they do, and you can sign up to be part of them. So let's see, what have we got? There's a Business of Art Society. I can't for the life of me think offhand what other societies there are. I think there's some information up on this on the Students' Union page on the Courtauld website, so you could look that up, or on the offer holder page. But there are various societies that you could be part of, absolutely. And also you get access to the University of London societies as well. So if, for example, you wanted to join a sports team, we don't really have specific sports Courtauld teams, but you could join University of London teams and that kind of thing if you wanted to. I think that's the last question in the chat at the moment. Have I missed anything?
I think that's it. Sorry, I'm just finding the link.
There's one more appeared at the bottom here. Will the MA taking place in 2022-23 be located at Somerset House? We're not sure yet. Probably not. It depends on how the building project progresses, but I can't confirm that.
Okay. student union page. I'm just going to put the link to the student union page. So
Thank you. Thanks, Saka. Sorry, the webinar's taking up my whole screen and I can't get onto the internet at the same time. So thank you very much. I'm not sure what I've done. Thank you.
okay, I think that's all questions we've had.
That's all there is in there at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to sort of virtually meet everybody as a list of names at the very least. And I do hope that at some point, well, certainly in the summer term, we will be in touch with you again to arrange another meetup where you can hopefully see each other, put some names to faces, and I can introduce you to Suzanne, who will be leading you through next year as a graduate diploma student with us. So welcome, as I say. I think Taka needs deposits from everyone by the 21st of May. Is that right, Taka? So that's the next thing to do. And then we'll look forward to welcoming you, to sending out course allocation surveys and all the rest of it. And do absolutely stay in touch with us. Get in touch with Taka on that email address. And if it's something that he needs me to answer, then I will come back to you as well. Okay. But it's really lovely to speak to you this afternoon. And yeah, stay in touch. Thank you very much. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.